Hello and welcome, Gregory Anne Cox, who is a woman on a mission. She herself now says that she's become a movement, and she's on this mission to help women through their midlives. Now, this is a woman who does her research and walks her talk. Graduated from the Culinary Institute of America, 20 years in the hospitality industry, cooking for many of the rich and famous, and her culinary creations have appeared in the media, including the New York Times, and she's been featured in CNN, and her writing appears in a number of publications. She does teleseminars on midlife health, fitness, and I love this bit, sanity. And she is a nutrition coach. Now, I know about Gregory Anne because I actually personally get her newsletter. And I love her newsletter. It's always thought-provoking, and this week it was plain-provoking. And that's why I've got you on this week, Gregory Anne.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Brilliant. And I invited you because of the Newsweek article that we both saw, and you actually wrote a response on, which was about the baby holding the French fries.
Mm-hmm.
Which the heading said, "When I grow up, I want to be 300 pounds," which saddened me, and I had such an amazing response from yourself. I just had to invite you.
Well, I was so happy to hear from you so quickly. I got a lot of responses, as you would imagine, from that article, and I have the picture on my wall right in front of my desk just to remind me of the mission to get the right information out to people so that that child doesn't have to grow up to be 300 pounds, and the people that are struggling right now because of the conventional wisdom of what to eat and what not to do. I'm very passionate about it, and I was so happy to hear from you anyway.
It came across that passion, it really did. And, you covered off in your newsletter the pimping of pharmaceuticals. And, you very rarely hear that sort of language, to be honest, in the normal media. But you're absolutely right, as far as I'm concerned, that the overloading of medication, children now, and tying them in right from the start, in particular, absolutely drives me up the wall. And obviously, you went on to talk about vaccines, statins, diabetes drugs, bone drugs, antidepressants. Where does it stop, in fact? And then you asked, am I enough? And that was really interesting. And you were saying, so let's get loud.
Let's get loud. One of my, it's sort of that week between the magazine article and a couple of clients that I spoke to was this culmination of frustration because 3 of the women that I spoke to, ranging in ages from 46 to 60, had been to their doctor saying, I just don't feel right, something's whatever, and the doctors all to a one said, well, here's a prescription for a psychiatry visit, and you need Prozac or Zoloft and none of them wanted, that wasn't what they went to the doctor for. They didn't feel depressed, they just didn't feel well. Something was up, and these docs are just writing scripts right and left, and that got me started too. Because what really women need is to be heard, and I understand that doctors don't have a lot of time. The Western medical model, I don't know how it is in your country, it's crazy over here. The average patient visit is 7 minutes, and it's hard for a doctor who has to be paid by insurance to go beyond that. I understand these things. However, this is no way to run a wellness care industry. It's a health care, it's an illness care industry, right? And it's supposed to be about health. So if these women, if somebody were to say, well, how are you eating? Let's start with that. Do you sleep well? Maybe we should test your hormones and see. There is a possibility that some of these women could benefit from a bit of antidepressant medication, but it's not across the board the right prescription.
I feel the Western model is all now about funneling people through it and keeping you within it as much as they can. I was reading an article just recently, and there was a quote by a paediatric doctor which was effectively saying that children, if they can get them young enough onto medications, they're the perfect patient, and they're a long-term business. And I just thought that was absolutely awful, but they know that as well.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know whether to be angry or sad, a little bit of both, I think.
Yeah.
And I heard there was a report not too long ago in one of our media saying that they have, as you said, developed this heart disease prevention medication, and if they get kids on it young enough, they're saying we can save billions of dollars a year in healthcare costs. Well, it's just creating a different kind of problem because there are side effects from those medications, And we have no way, it's just a big human experiment, and we're the guinea pigs. We have no idea what's going to show up in 20 years of a child or anybody else taking those kind of medications for 20, 30 years.
The other thing is the overlaying of the medications as well. And you must see that with women in their midlife in particular, because most doctors will want to get them onto HRT and hormonal medications, and then it's almost like, I find with my clients, it's almost like a slippery slope. I'll get a client and they're on 11, 12, 13 medications.
Yeah.
And that astonishes me.
It astonishes me, and how can any doctor know what the interactions of every single one of those medications is having in the body?
And like you say, in 20 years' time, you were talking about children just then, but in reality, all of that goes into our systems, in the wider system, in regards to our water systems, holistically. What is that doing to ourselves as a population as well?
Yeah, that's a really good point. All of this runoff of the drugs, and never mind, people are throwing their medications away at some point. They flush them down the toilet, that gets in the stream. Animals eat them. We have all of this chemical onslaught on top of just trying to stay well and maybe need medication now and again. And people often say to me, well, what do I do to stay healthy? And it's so simple. It's just so simple. Stay away from, okay, maybe it's not simple for everybody, but the basic underlying premise of how to stay healthy is pretty simple. Eat foods that you recognize as food, and that's a really good start. Get some rest, take good care of yourself, drink clean water. It doesn't really have to be all that complicated.
But isn't it scary when people are coming to you and saying they really don't know what they need to do to be healthy? And you were saying about the conventional wisdom, the intuition is almost lost that we had originally, particularly as women.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. Because, and I'm sure in your practice, you must encourage people to seek their body's wisdom. Just as you were saying, we used to have this instinct about what to do. And it's very complicated. I understand there's a lot of information coming at everybody, and, grab this diet and this new pill and that kind of thing. And I think that, when I work with women, I always say, if you can start to listen, I guarantee you your body is going to tell you what you need. People say, how much should I eat? Well, when you're full stop. The body is telling us things all the time. But the world is noisy too. I'm not making anybody wrong for the confusion. It's hard to stay quiet and to listen. It really is, I think.
It's interesting when you say we have to listen to our bodies again, because I feel, and I was reading an article this morning, I think it was on Alternet, and that was talking about the addiction side of the foods that we eat, and of course there are opiates in foods which will dull the receptor size, and this is where overeating starts to happen. So there was a Dr. David Kessler who was in your FDA for about 7 years.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, The End of Overeating, he wrote, and he actually talks about that manufacturers are they're nutritionists, design food so it hits our bliss point, it affects our dopamine, and that in effect we're driven to want more and crave more of it.
Yeah, that was a great book. I'm glad you mentioned that book, because I was astonished, and I had been in the food industry, and I knew some food scientists. Not anything I ever wanted to do. I wanted to play with real food more, but when I was reading about the amount of time and money that's spent on hooking a person's brain as well as their palate for these foods, and then they realize if they add sugar and fat with crunch and sugar and fat with salt and sweet and salt, all these combinations of food just keep making them more and more addictive. I can understand how people say, I can't stop eating. And then he talked also about certain people's brains. They would put candy in the center of a table when they were having a meeting, and ask people at the end of the meeting whether nobody ate any candy, did they think about the candy? And some people didn't even look at the bowl and didn't think about it, but some people, they said it was all they could do to not think about eating some candy. So just coming into the world, we have these different setups chemically in our brain, and those food companies know how to get to those people too.
It's interesting, because if you start looking at the layering of the impacts on the different systems, so the agribusiness with the pesticides, the big pharma with their medications and then the food side of it, you can see that collectively they are manipulating our bodies and our minds so that they can drive our behaviour.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. Yeah, it's coming at us from all sides. It's true.
And I think women in particular are affected because of their hormones. And I'm always really interested reading your work around the midlife, because I'm at that point myself, and I know that the different things are impacting, and my hormones change with the actual cycle of life.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. Again, I've read so many times people say, menopause is not a disease; it's just a transition, and we're treating it like a disease. But I'd like to say it's not a disease, but there are, for some women, some symptoms that take away their quality of life. And those are the kind of things that I think more information about the safety, perhaps, for some people of bioidentical hormones or alternative methods like acupuncture, herbs, all of these things. Again, it's whether women get listened to. There seem to be more and more docs that are practicing functional medicine, holistic doctors like yourself, or practitioners. I want so many more of you to be out in the world so that you can, because I know that you do listen to your patients and you take the symptoms seriously, whereas some women, again, this is what happens at your age, you're supposed to just suffer through it, you'll come out the other end at some point, that's crazy.
And it's part of this disinformation that continuously goes on, from what I can understand from the media, which tells you that this has to be what health looks like. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I just feel my clients are often bombarded and are very confused about what truly makes health nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would say that that's true of the people that I speak to. And going back to the idea that some people have these medications, when you may find the same, if I'm working with somebody on their foundation pieces, which to me are nutrition and movement, good sleep, and let's start there. When they have these medications and they're saying, well, I think this is making me gain weight and I think this is having a migraine effect, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't help them get off those meds, but I know that for some people, they can't ever feel totally well because of these medications that they've been given, which are supposed to be helping them be well. It's a complicated thing for many people, even though I said it should be easy, and it is, it can be easy, but those meds, boy, they get in the way of some people's just relaxing back into health.
And it's, for me, the worry about mass medication as well, because they're trying to put things like statins in the water. You just really don't know about the mass medication that's truly going on anyway. And you have to really ask, when I get clients and I screen them and I see all their hormone picture, and they tell me, well, they haven't really been taking a lot, and I think, really? I think, where's it coming from then? And I don't know how you feel about. I know at one stage there was news coming out, not only from the UK but also from the States, about the feeling that they wanted to put statins in places like McDonald's.
Oh my gosh, I missed that story. That would have really made me crazy. Gosh. I mean, I just don't. There's so much evidence about statin drugs not working for a good deal of the population that I don't understand how they keep getting away with pushing them on people. They do help with inflammation, and in certain people with really, a high level of heart disease, they can be effective. But for the general population, and especially women, according to the doctors that I follow, they're really inappropriate. They're just not the right choice.
And I think that in this country, I would say the majority of my clients over 60 are all placed on statins automatically without, even if they haven't got a cholesterol problem. I don't know if you're finding the same thing with your clients, but the doctor almost thinks, well, over 60, you're very possibly going to have a cholesterol problem, so we'll negate that and we'll put you on statins.
Yeah, and I think that the doctors can be held responsible for a lot of it, and of course the pharmaceutical people who drive the drugs into the doctor's office and buy them champagne and pizza. But I would have to say too that there is some responsibility for our cultures, which is a pill popping kind of thing. Like, give me a drug and I'll be better. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday at a nursery. I was out buying some plants, and he owns the thing, and he drives around in a little cart because he finds it hard to walk. And he just said, I just want to go to the Mayo Clinic and lay there for a week and have them tell me what to do. Just fix me. And he has a few complications, but that is the overarching message we run by here in this country. And I don't know whether it's quite the same for you. But there is some personal responsibility that has to go along with this, because people cannot avoid the message of eating well, drinking water, etc., etc., but sometimes they close their ears and they don't want to do that.
I agree. I find that a lot of my clients don't want to take responsibility, so they're the ones who don't tend to come back, because my approach is all about educating and then in effect letting them understand how they've brought themselves to this point in their health, and then explain to them how they can undo it. But they have to take responsibility. And lots of my clients will just say, "But I just want to take a pill." And you were just talking about those carts as well. I was only having a conversation the other day with another practitioner about how many people now are in those little buggies driving around my age.
I don't mean to laugh at the person, but it's just every time there's a way out for people, some new invention comes along. So in order for me to walk, if there wasn't a buggy, I would have to do something physically to change what was happening. But all of a sudden there are these little electric carts everywhere you go. And I was in Las Vegas for a convention not too long ago, and they are everywhere on the casino floors. I don't gamble, but you have to walk through the casino to get to your hotel elevator. And I'm just amazed. And it's the same if I go to a big box, what we would call a big box store here, like Costco or, supermarket, huge place. They're driving around there too. And I don't know, I'm glad that they're there if people truly have a problem walking, but all I'm saying is I think that, again, it's abrogating the responsibility to this machine as opposed to the person getting better, feeling better.
And I feel that people often, they don't want to take a level of responsibility for what they've done to themselves, so they will just say, "This has happened to me."
Oh, yes.
And I don't know if you find the same thing.
Yes, and I correct people to my, I question myself at times, but I am a coach and a consultant, so people ask me what to do and I suggest things. But if I'm in coaching mode and someone says, "Well, I can't believe this happened," that I got 40 pounds overweight or whatever, I always ask them, did it just happen or did you have any part in it? And, whatever their response is, at least gets them thinking for that moment. Because I believe very strongly in the language we use around our health and pretty much, in everything, every aspect of our lives. What we say is very important to what we act on. And we are not brought up in a way to be aware of our language. I don't know whether you feel the same. It's just very easy to say things, and then, because I'm constantly catching myself, did I really mean that was incredible? Because this morning I was at the beach, it was such a beautiful day. I said, "Wow, what an incredible..." Why is it incredible? Why isn't it possible that this day would be so beautiful? So it's just interesting, but that's a good point. This just happened to me. It's not the truth, ever.
No, and it's interesting when I do case histories, because unlike the doctor, and you were saying that your doctors give 7 minutes, I was given about the same amount of time, about between 5 and 7 minutes. And so when clients come to see me, they'll get anything up to 2 hours.
Wow.
And they'll say to me, at first, 2 hours, that's such a long time. And I say, but I need to really understand your health. And I need you to understand your health picture as well. And so
yeah, that's a good point.
It is. And I just feel that enables them to actually see, and me to see, what has led the whole journey that they've taken with their health. Do you do a similar sort of thing with your clients?
Yes, and so I do. The first time that we get together, they've done an intake form, and then we spend an hour together. But since I'm not doing a medical history, I'm more interested in how they think and what they're doing right now. Of course, if they have lots of medications, because that's on the form as well, what are you taking, kind of thing, supplements and meds, we can talk about that. But I spend about, any coaching call is about half mindset and half material and what to do, kind of thing, because the mindset is all. If someone, as you were saying, if they don't want to take personal responsibility, I have to help them change their mind about that, or we have nowhere to work.
I personally believe that mindset's about 90% of healing.
I think that's, I would agree. And the body knows what to do if we allow it, right? right? So we just have to sort of get out of the way, make a few adjustments usually. And again, with some people it's more complicated because they've gone further down the path of ill health. And I love that you said you want to know about the person and how they got there. I have a doctor that I'm lucky. I spend about an hour with him when I go, and I usually I'm a healthy person, but if I go, to get hormone levels done or something like that, he always checks in with me about what's been going on and asks about my life and my business, because those things could impact my health, right?
Yeah.
So I totally, for anybody who's never had that, I would say find somebody like Debbie Walker or a doctor who will listen to you. It really, I swear to God, being heard is the best thing on the planet. When you get to tell your story, not again and again and again, but one time to a person who can sort it out with you, that just feels so good to me.
It's really interesting. A few years ago, before I actually trained, I actually had a kidney infection, and I went to see my doctor, and he spent the whole time staring at his computer whilst I talked to the side of his head.
Oh, that's a new thing here too. They have to write everything in their computer. Oh my gosh, that's another one of my bugaboos.
I just couldn't believe it. I had this whole conversation with the side of somebody's head, and then just going, and I was thinking, okay, do you really care about my health at all?
And that's exactly how it feels when somebody's not engaged with you. You feel like they're just spending their time getting through the appointment, and then they're going to take out a prescription pad. And in your case, that was probably something that you needed, was a prescription to get through that infection. But yeah, we've just started having the docs, even my doctor, who I love, when he first got his computer, he was so intent on checking off this, do you have this, and I literally was looking at the back of his head, and I finally said to him, could you just turn around and talk to me for a few minutes? And he said, oh, I'm so sorry, we're trying to get this system down. So he wasn't even aware of the fact that he wasn't engaged anymore, because they're the hospital bought the practice, and they have, these restrictions and these goals for these doctors to get all these people in the computer. But I don't know where can we go from here? It doesn't seem to be getting better.
Well, you're almost telling me there that health has become a process, and ill health for me is it's almost about, like I said at the start, it's almost getting you into the system so that they can continuously funnel you through. And their business model isn't about exiting you at any stage. It's just about keeping you moving through it. And I was just reading earlier, 16% of US income goes on healthcare.
Wow.
It just blew me away, to be honest.
Well, I would have to say that if I think about it for myself, I would say it's that, yeah. Close to that. My insurance is crazy, but when I try to look at getting something less, it doesn't make any sense. There's more expensive, but there's nothing less except catastrophic insurance, and then, I don't know what happens with that. But again, I'm healthy, and there's this feeling of safety if I have the insurance, because occasionally things have happened. I got a cat bite, I ended up in the hospital. Things happen, so you want to have it. But they don't make it easy for us to have it.
And I was absolutely astonished by some of the stats I was coming across, because this was about obesity, which is how come we're both talking to each other. Mm-hmm. And things like 24 pounds of sweeteners are consumed on average by Americans a year. 29 pounds of French fries, which we call chips in our country. 600 pounds of dairy, and it just doesn't amaze me anymore about why you've got such an obesity epidemic and why we are starting to have the same issues over here.
Yes, I was surprised when I went. Since my stepchildren live in the UK, I'm honored to be able to visit them at Christmas. At least they come here because they'd rather come here and play in America, because they're kind of tired of where they live, as most kids would be. But when I get to go over there, the last time I went, I was absolutely surprised at how many heavier people I saw, but like really heavy people in your country, because I wasn't used to that.
It is starting to change, and our obesity levels are increasing, much like your own. But then if you look at our societies, they're very mirrored in regards to how, the type of diet. What type of diet do you tend to come across with people, first of all?
I'm sorry?
What type of diet do you find that people are generally eating, first of all, when you meet them?
I tend to get mostly people that say they are healthy and they're doing everything right, but they can't lose weight, or they feel tired, so then I look at what they're eating, and they underconsume vegetables. Like they say, oh, I eat a lot of vegetables, and then I really get down to it, they eat about 2 servings a day.
Yeah.
They do love their bread and pasta. This is a bread and pasta country. And I would say even more than sweets, I get the people that are just filling up, well, I'm supposed to eat a lot of healthy grains. Okay, but our pyramid or plate, whatever we have now from the USDA, says 9 to 11 servings of grains a day. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's way too much starch for people to handle. I don't care whether it's whole grain or not. When it comes to sweets, most of my women are chocolate lovers. Other than that, they don't do a whole lot. I have one girl who's do you have cake pops over there? These little cupcakes on a stick?
Oh gosh, I've not come across them.
Yeah, that's a big thing in this country right now. So, but yeah, they're doing better than the general population, the people that come to me. And of course, this is an economic situation, right? So the people that come to me can afford to pay more for themselves, to work on themselves than maybe the general pop. But I would say it's grains across the board that they're eating too much of.
That's a really interesting point, because I actually agree with you about the food pyramid in particular with the grains. It's been, from my perspective, it's been designed by agribusiness.
Yes,
and
yes it has.
Yeah, and you can see that with how prominent the meats, the dairy, and the grains are on there. And I find that, much like yourself, my own clients are consuming only about, and these are the ones that are healthy, about 1.5-2 portions of vegetables a day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I start to move them towards the vegetables, and they'll say to me, "But I'm eating really healthfully." And I'll say, "But you've had only kind of 2 food groups all day. You've had cereal and milk continuously all day. So you've had bread for lunch, you've had cereals for breakfast, and then they've had pasta for dinner."
So it's not too much different.
No, not at all. So it's interesting that you're finding the same thing over that. So what would we have to do to be different, do you think, for it to be different for this child on the front of Newsweek not to actually be 300 pounds? Because the CDC prediction for 2030 says that 42% of Americans will be obese and 11% will be severely obese.
Mm-hmm. That's a complicated, great question. And I don't think we have enough time in the world to talk about, like, what would it take? How can we help? When I worked last year for a company that does school feeding. It's a private contractor. And in order to feed everybody, both those children that can pay and those children that are subsidized who don't bring any money into the system to go to school, the government gives these companies some food. And the company I worked for was really committed to making healthy meals. And this is really funny, actually it was on one of Jamie Oliver's shows, Jamie's Food Revolution.
Yes.
Had the same instance. They went to LA, Los Angeles, and they were going to do this program there, and so they had to upgrade some of the foods. It wasn't the children that complained about the idea, it was the parents, and I found the same when we would go into a school and try to add, a vegetable here or take away corn and make it a salad. The parents were saying, if you start doing this here, I'm going to have to do it at home, and I don't have time, or I'm not interested in changing the way we eat. So one of the things that we have to do is get the parents on board and make it somehow affordable, because there is that question in much of the country. In order to get clean, lean protein and lots of veggies, it's more expensive than buying French fries and McDonald's. So right off the bat, those are 2 huge issues. What do you think?
I think it's interesting you talk about time being an issue, because the majority of people I find really struggle with taking time off if they're ill, and they will pump medications into themselves so they can carry on and carry on. They live such busy lives nowadays that time to actually look after themselves truly just doesn't happen. It's almost I laugh and say that sleep has become one of these things that you only do occasionally, if necessary, in your life, because people just see it as, it's just something that I need to do at the end of the day, because I'm too shattered to do anything else.
Yeah, that's funny about the sleep. I'm a big sleep proponent, and I guard my sleep hours. Even if I'm not going to get as many as I like, which is 8, I make sure that I disconnect from the things I'm doing in advance of getting ready to go to bed, because other than that, my mind just keeps attached to the electronics or to the story that I'm writing or whatever it is. But I know somebody once said to me, I can sleep when I'm dead. I thought, you can. You'll get there faster probably too if you don't start taking care of yourself.
I don't think people truly understand the importance of sleep.
I don't, and it's hard to make that case, because if people are used to getting by on 6 hours when their body would prefer 8 or more, and they're doing okay, and that's another thing that I find a lot of my women say, well, it's not all that bad, I'm doing okay. You know, and then okay is okay when we're younger, but as we start to age, as you know, the body demands more attention because it's, you know, things are changing, and we need to really be nice to this little body we have if we want to have quality of life for whatever second half we have left.
It's a little bit like the boiling the frog slowly. The feeling of okay, though, kind of shifts and shifts and shifts, so that you don't understand at the end really how good you could have felt.
It's, you know, that's a really great point. I have when I go to an event as a sponsor, or if I'm going to meet people and I have a table, I'm a vendor at an event, I have a big sign that stands up with my name, you know, Midlife with a Vengeance, and the top of it says, are you ready to feel better? And people will stop by, women will stop by, and they'll say, well, what does that mean? And I say, well, how do you feel? Oh, I'm tired, or I'm this, or I've got 20 pounds to lose, or and I say, well, that's what I mean. And I said, would you like to have a conversation about how you might be able to get relief or feel better? No, I'm okay. And then they walk by. It's just funny. You catch them in their moment of, they feel the agony of not feeling as well as they would like, but as you said, it's like, but it's okay. We're boiling the frog slowly.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Does that come back to the fact that they know that they just don't have the time to spend actually concentrated on creating that change? Or is it
I think it's time, and I also think people, we have a tendency to do for others and not for ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we've said, I'm going to take on this change, and we don't make it happen, we convince ourselves that we can't change. We're not the type of person to get through it. And somebody has to just be really, really ready. I'm sure you find this. The people that are willing to take responsibility, something has come up for them in their life that makes it right now or never.
Yes. It's almost been the tipping point, hasn't it, for them?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great phrase. Yeah.
And they'll do anything at that point to actually turn the clock back to where they were, I find. And it's really interesting, your point about women will put other people in front of themselves. I was speaking to someone this morning, and she was saying to me, her husband's extremely ill, and she was saying that, oh, don't worry about me, I feel great at the moment. And I'm going, but what are you doing for yourself whilst you're looking after him?
Mm-hmm.
And she's going, oh, no, I'm fine, don't worry about me.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was really interesting, because of course I do feel that women tend to will put everybody else in front of themselves at times.
Oh yeah, and especially when it's work, kids, or even if the kids are gone. Most of my clients, you know, their children are in college, coming back maybe to visit, or older than that. But we just keep doing. We're doing, and there is I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, women that work for themselves, so their business has to be attended to, or they won't have the money to keep going. And when you put the amount of money you're making against taking care of yourself and maybe doing a little less work, it scares people for good reason. We all have responsibilities. We have bills to pay. But what it's hard to convince people of is that if you're really feeling good, you're more effective at work and everything else, and you can do more in less time. If we're slogging through the day half awake, it's taking us twice as long to concentrate and get things done. It's just the way it is. But again, to get that person's attention, something has to be in their life ready to hear it.
It's interesting with the point. I used to work in HR years ago, and very much worked on well-being, and that was about, if we could get people to feel good, they would have a good performance, and they would have better morale across the business. I completely agree with you.
And companies do know that. I mean, you just said it, and I've worked for companies over here where I'll do a lunch and learn program, an hour-long talk while people are, you know, the companies pay for wellness because they know it affects their bottom line.
And last week's show that I did was very much about, it was about optimal performance, and I was looking at the sponsors, because I was linking it with the Olympics, and I was looking at some of the sponsors behind it, and my point was some of the sponsors are not giving you optimal performance. So things like Coca-Cola with the espresso in it, the McDonald's, even though, you know, the information that's coming out is saying zero Coke is healthy.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but
Yeah.
but in effect, this will give you optimal performance like an athlete at the Olympics. And I'm personally thinking that that's actually a load of rubbish, if you ask me.
That's crazy that they're saying that.
It is.
Yeah, I have a real, I have an anger management problem when it comes to artificial sweeteners being healthy. Because, and just the other day, because I'm running a weight loss class currently, we were talking about artificial sweeteners, and when I first start people in this program, I ask them to eliminate certain foods for 2 weeks to see how they do, and it usually helps them repair inflammation and metabolism and stuff, and one of them is artificial sweeteners. And everybody did pretty well except one girl, and it was the end of her 2 weeks, and she said, "Oh, I can't wait to have a Diet Coke." And I said, "Did you read the page on how artificial sweeteners actually, the people that use more of them gain weight rather than lose weight?" She said, "No." "Where was that?" I said, "It's in your handout." So she went back, and sure enough, and I have lots of quotes, where I got the information is all backed up. Yeah. But it's true. It fools the brain into thinking that it's getting nutrition in the form of sweetness, and so the body then wants the calories, and the calories don't come, and so then we start searching for food because the calories have to be there. If the brain has already registered, there's some kind of sweet food on board, something's wrong. I missed the calorie part, let me go find it. It's so interesting, and not to mention that the chemical aspect of them is an obesogen in the sense, like many other obesogens, meaning chemicals that affect the endocrine system, they wreak havoc with the hormones in our bodies. Whether it's adrenal, thyroid, there are all kinds of people that are sensitive to those things that won't even think that they're a problem. And then I'm with you about the companies that say that these are healthy. In our country, the American Diabetes Association has Diet Coke as one of their sponsors. And it just... I can't wrap my head around it, really.
I'm lost for words.
Me too, I'm stuttering now.
And I do have, let me find this piece of information. It is about, you were talking about the associations bought and paid for, the Diabetes Association, Heart Association, the Dietitian, you call it the Dietetics Association in the US, we call them the dietitians over here, and all who follow the government guidelines. And just recently, the dietitians over here put out a piece of information, and it's a health initiative that they're running with the National Health Service in the UK, and they were saying that you can eat healthy and then you can have a snack in between, and the snacks that they were promoting weren't nuts and seeds, but they were you could have crisps and biscuits.
Oh my gosh.
And all this stuff which I just could not truly believe was actually being put forward by a health association, but this is because they are linked with this food pyramid and with all of these businesses, unfortunately, and with the government.
Yes, and those in our country, because I don't exactly know whether your government has the same situation, but we have what's called lobbyists. So the big companies send really smart people who can speak well and be convincing to certain chambers in our government to talk to them and say, you really need to give us more money because of X, Y, and Z. And the biggest lobbyists, the people with the most money, are the pharmaceutical companies, the dairy, the meat, and the grain, as a whole. Corn is one, sugar is one, but I'm lumping them all in together. And as long as they keep having the center stage, this will always be the case. And I know in our country, when you're talking about the snacks that are okay, they've come out with crisps and things in little 100-calorie packs. And so now, because it's in a pack that only allows you 100 calories, no matter what's in that pack, it can be a healthy snack. And again, what do we say?
I wanted to talk to you about the calories in, calories out argument, because we touched on this, and you've touched on this previously, and that for me is a discussion that I tend to have with my clients right from the start, because I'm always focused on nutrients, not calories, and they struggle to understand this. Do you want to just cover that off?
Sure. The calories in, calories argument is the one that most people understand. I have to exercise enough to burn my calories, or my basal metabolism has to burn these many calories that I'm taking in. And it isn't that easy, because I think because of the way our bodies are acclimatizing themselves to all this crazy food that we eat, there are certain things that cause insulin, blood sugar to raise insulin, inflammation. There's this whole ball of wax that knocks this calories in, calories out thing out the window because the hormones are created and more fat is being stored by certain foods but not by others. So in other words, when you talk about getting nutrition from foods, that's exactly what I say. And I tell people not even count calories. I want them to read labels and become aware of how much sugar is in a product, whether there are chemicals and trans fats and things like that. But I want them to look at the nutrition that they're getting. And I always include healthy fat because fat does not affect blood sugar. And it's important for our brains. And when people say, well, but I can't eat the egg yolk, or I can't have a tablespoon of almond butter on an apple because it's fat and it's got so many calories. So it's just a continuing conversation to get people comfortable with that. And everybody who's willing to get rid of the junk or the high glycemic foods and incorporate more healthy fats, more vegetables, and some lean protein, they see results. And one of the results that many of them see when they start to look at how much sugar is in the food is when they eliminate the sugar, they find relief in ways that they never thought possible, including pain in the joints. Something called plantar fasciitis seems to be something that creeps up a lot in my women. So eliminating these foods that do not, you could eat 1,200 calories of sugar, processed, junk food and maybe not gain weight. Or you could eat 1,200 calories of super delicious, high nutrition, fatty foods like avocado and maybe some coconut milk in your smoothie and all that, and actually lose weight because it's not doing the same thing to your body. Did I explain that well?
Yeah.
It's a confusing thing.
I absolutely agree with you. And what was I going to say just then? I have you're absolutely right in regards to nutrients. They're not all created the same. This is the thing. And this is what people don't see at first because they get so fixed on this. Oh, I've had 1,500 calories, therefore I'm going to lose weight.
Yeah.
Actually, I will tell my clients that I will eat 2,500, 3,000 calories in a day some days, and they're looking at me and I'm only about 7.5 stone.
Yeah.
They're looking at me going, really? And I go, yes, you can eat that many calories as long as they're the right calories, as long as they're the right nutrients.
Yes, and that's, I find, as I've over the years changed to this way of eating, that if I'm craving something, like yesterday for some reason, even though I had a nice organic egg with some vegetables for breakfast, before I left the house to go do some work, I was hungry. But not really hungry, I just felt like I needed something fatty. It was weird. So I carry these packages, little 2.5-ounce packages of pulverized coconut. And I open that up, and it's got some fiber, it's got some protein, but pretty much it's fat.
Yeah.
I had about a tablespoon of that, and I was smooth sailing. But it's funny that you say that you eat so many calories a day, because I'm amazed at how much I eat now compared to what I used to eat, and my body stays the same weight. I don't struggle around it at all, but I eat when I'm hungry, and I know the foods that are good for me, and that's how I eat them.
Yeah, and there's something that often people who are calorie counting, they're not doing, are they? They tend to be focusing on the food all the way through the day, and they'll be thinking, it's only another 2 hours before I can eat. It's only another hour before I can eat. Right, I can now have 300 calories at this meal. And, and they will break their food down for me. And I almost feel for them. I don't know about you, but I think, gosh, that's awful having to live your life so regimented to make sure that your weight's balanced.
Exactly. And it's this letting go almost of the rules that we have for people, the rules that they have around their food and how many calories and, this many of this, but don't eat that. And then the people, so if they could let go of all that, which is the hardest thing I find, but the people that do it most successfully are the ones that get their bodies back. They lose the weight, they feel better, they have more energy. And now I lost my train of thought. This is what happens at midlife. But anyway, I guess the point I was going to make is it's a letting go and also an accepting, letting go of the rules that we have over what's healthy and, this calorie conversation. And then there are the people that start their day on the scale.
Yes.
And their day is either good or bad depending on what that number is. And I really believe, I can't prove this, although I'm sure some quantum physicists could, if the attention is given every day to that number and that determines your day, it can't possibly go well from there if you're not happy.
Well, no, if you're setting yourself up failure around a weight number, which effectively can come down to how well you've eliminated the next day, what you that day, effectively how you've eaten it, what time you've eaten it, the amount of water you've had in it, whether you've sweated more, and what the moon cycle's like. Because at different times, your body holds on to more of what you're actually putting into it, and at other times the moon cycle actually cleanses you more. People, I really feel for women who effectively have got themselves into that cycle, because it's a recipe for disaster from the morning onwards.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's a way that we feel in control, but it's actually, in my view, creating an out of control feeling. Like, this number represents how could I, or how come I'm not, and there is no control in there. There's just anguish to me, and that's one of the reasons, because when I gained a lot of weight when I was a teenager, and I suspect it was not only hormonal, but there was a lot of drama in the household, So, but those years of being a heavy kid, and then finally coming, at about the end of high school, I started to normalize. But then again, in my 30s and 40s, there were those yo-yo times, and it never felt good physically, but it was also what I thought other people thought of me, and how I looked when I went out, and that anguish of what to eat and what not to eat. That's one of the reasons I do what I do. And it's not only weight loss that I do, but those people that feel, oh my gosh, I hate myself because of this and that. That's sad. Again, it's like this this baby that's going to be 300 pounds. I don't want people to feel that sadness. Let them be sad about something that's meaningful. This should not be the way it is.
Do you actually believe the CDC figures are going to be accurate in 2030 with that level of obesity?
So is that 18? That's 18 years from now, and I believe that there are more people getting on board for clean, healthy food, ways of eating. There are more, I don't know about your country, but we have a lot of school programs now educating children on what to eat, more activity in their day. I think if we do nothing, that's basically what they're saying. If nothing changes, this is where we will be. It is my hope that we can reverse that possibility, that trend, just by people like you and I having conversations and more people doing things, right? Yeah. Conversation is great, but you're in your practice you're walking your talk, like you said earlier about myself, and I walk my talk, and I am now, my focus is getting as many health and wellness professionals as I can to move in the same direction and to get this message out. And when people who go into my business or your business are struggling with their business, that's also a mindset thing, and that just needs a little tweaking. But if you're struggling, your message isn't getting out, and the people that will be helped by you will not get helped, right? So I encourage people who are, I'm a coach, but I don't have any clients, or get some help. Find somebody that can coach you into the next level of your business, so that we can, as a group, help reverse the possibility or the trend again, that obesity is going to keep increasing.
I feel there's a real push-pull going on in society at the moment. We've got this real push with natural foods and all of the alternative practitioners and alternative health, and that's a growing force, and there's real energy behind that. And at the same time, there's legislation coming out to dampen that down and put it into obscurity and make out that it's actually quackery. And then at the same time, you've got people making a choice that they actually want to see a natural practitioner. So that's actually growing in the supplement industry, and all that natural health industry is growing, and people are pushing back about the biotech industry. And I'm just seeing this push-pull going on at the moment. So, and this kind of hijacking by agribusiness and the pharmaceutical companies and the biotechs kind of, who are trying to, because like you say earlier, they're the ones with the lobbyists, they're the ones with the money. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones managing to get to the right people to actually really influence, unfortunately, and it's ourselves at the grassroots who are creating this sort of energy underneath everything. What do you think about that?
I think I can only move forward. I have to keep my vision as strong as possible. And if I were to think about, when I first heard in my mind, like, okay, I'm a coach, I'm trying to figure out what my purpose is, or who am I going to be? And I got this idea that who I was meant to help was to reverse the rates of heart disease and diabetes in the world. And I thought, that's crazy. That's not me. That's huge. I can't do that. But then suddenly it keeps getting stronger. And so here I am, and I totally understand that push-pull, and I know that the reason that Monsanto is fighting so hard to keep labeling of GMOs out of our country's food is because they're being pressured by a lot of the small grassroots organizations that are saying, no, we want this. So they're putting millions into Washington, D.C. to say, because California has a bill that they want GMOs labeled on the food if it's being used. I think that's perfectly reasonable. If they are so safe, let's just let people know that they're there. But Monsanto has increased their voice because they're getting more pressure. So even though, and this is the way anything gets done, right? Any period of history where there's been a revolution, there's a lot of strife and people get hurt and there's, millions go down or thousands go down. I think that that's where we are right now. This push-pull can go either way, but if we will stand strong in our conviction that we can help the planet of people and the planet itself so that it's around for a longer bit of time, then we have no choice but to, I wouldn't say win out, because I don't want to, there are people in the world that will always go to that side. The Monsanto, agribusiness, pharma, that's fine for them. For you and I think we want the people that have tweaked, like something happened, I want different results, I want to feel better naturally. So let's just keep moving forward and gathering as many of those people as we can.
That's lovely. So tell me clearly what your vision now is. What's the next stages for you with this? Because I do feel you're on a bit of a mission and you've got this rallying cry.
Yes, and if you could just delineate for me what it looks like from here, I'd be very thankful. Well, the first thing I'm doing really, as I mentioned a minute ago, is these coaches and wellness people who can't find their way, but they have a gift and they have a desire to help. I want to work with those people because I know what it takes to get a business up and running and to, I made all the mistakes in the beginning. I did everything backwards. I spent all the money up front that I could have spent later and it would have made a bigger impact in my business. But saying that, I now know exactly how to streamline the process of getting from ground zero to fully out there and helping people. So my mission right now, I guess, is to gather these people under my wing. I have Rebellious Wellness is the name of my movement because you and I were just saying some things that would be considered pretty rebellious in the mainstream. And I think that that's what it's going to take, people that are willing to stand up and be a little bit naughty in front of, the conventional wisdom people to get this done. So I'm going to work with coaches and see what goes, what we can do from there. And I would also, on the side, I'm building a coalition of people just like yourself. I don't know what that looks like because there's so many, things you can join in associations and online groups. I don't want another thing that's just to join. I want there to be some impact. So I'm formulating that in my head, but it hasn't come into full clarity yet.
So it's bubbling at the moment.
It is bubbling. There's a lot of bubbling.
I love the sound of this coalition. I do feel that we have to create power and energy by joining up with our message and being prepared to stand up and being counted.
Yeah. And I would like to say, jokingly, I call it the coalition of pissed off people, but I don't think that's going to fly in terms of getting members to understand what we stand for.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And I love the title of Rebellious Wellness.
Yeah, that's,
How did you
Midlife with a Vengeance is my primary company, and Rebellious Wellness is sort of an extension of the attitude. You can see in those two names that there's a bit of a feisty character behind them.
So tell me, before we finish, just tell the listeners a little bit about Midlife with a Vengeance.
Okay, thank you. Midlife with a Vengeance is a company that is designed to disseminate information that can really help people get well and feel better. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a doctor, and I just wanted everybody to feel good and feel better, and that's sort of been my long-standing mission. Even though I went off and cooked, I realized that cooking is a way of making people feel better. People are happy when they're eating together and such. So the company, we disseminate information through the blog, which I renamed Rebellious Wellness. I currently have a free report on my website at midlifewithavengeance.com, which is 20 metabolism boosters that people can implement into their day-to-day, which is pretty easy. It's an audio of a class that I did with a transcript, because I know not everybody likes to listen. Some people like to read. I also offer classes on weight loss, and I do one-on-one coaching, and I love to speak to groups, so I look for opportunities to go and just talk to people, and I think that anytime we communicate our ideas, there's somebody in the room that might be awakened by some of it, and that might help them. Even if I don't end up working with them, they might have had an awareness raised inside themselves that says, wow, I need to do something. Let me find out what that is. So I'm my company, regardless of whether I'm doing a telesount, I interview experts every month too, just like you're doing, Deb, to bring doctors and practitioners to my tribe of people so that they can hear from the people doing good out in the world and in the medical community and alternative communities what's up and what's the truth. I realize these are my truths, this is what I believe, but I've seen such great results, and it's sort of ancient historical wisdom that we're talking about here. I didn't create any of it myself, but that's pretty much what I'm about.
Fantastic. And just before we finish, I love the titles within your shop. I feel fat, I feel like crap, which just made me laugh so much, I have to say. Gregory Anne Cox, you've been fantastic. Thank you very, very much for joining us on TNS Radio. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm so happy that I've had a chance to meet you and speak with you, Deborah, and you are also doing great things in the world. I love your website. I think everybody should run over there right now.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I hope you are all loving this sun. Well, that's it for you in the UK. So I want you to get out in it and block your skin with some natural products if you need to, of course. But we need to get this light onto us, so take the most of this lovely, lovely weather. So how are you all, and what's going on in the chat box today? Anything interesting? So come on, get loud in the chat box so I've got something to actually talk about. Right, so where are we? So I hope you all enjoyed Gregory Anne Cox. She actually agreed to come on because of the Newsweek article, which was really nice of her to do. And it was because that article had on the front page the baby with the subheading, when I go up I want to be 300 pounds. And you know, part of the work that I do is to try and prevent people from actually ending up in that state. So, and someone in the chat box did say earlier about cholesterol. I don't know who it was. Let me just quickly scroll back and find out. Let me see if I can find. Is it Michael, maybe? Who said about the fact that they'd been having statins in it and made them feel more tired? Read the cholesterol myth and you'll find out why. And yes, I'll post a link at the end when I've managed to work everything out at the same time. So I'll post the link for Gregory Anne Cox. So this week I'm going to carry on where I left off, and about whole food supplements and taking a good multivitamin, because my aim is to kind of educate you so that you have enough information to keep yourselves healthy permanently. And because it's not difficult on the whole, but I mean, a lot of people say to me they don't need to take supplements. Well, with the soil now, it's actually really lacking in nutrients, unfortunately. Big agribusiness has basically made it so that you know, our food looks great but actually doesn't do very much else half the time. And so, you know, it looks great on the shelf. That apple looks fantastic. Those carrots look really orangey, but that's about as far as it goes. You know, the focus on nutrients in the soil has been seriously depleted, and I think, you know, Pondy in particular will agree with me on that. You know, they've been depleted to the point where the plants themselves can't even fight off the issues that's happening to them. So they're not as strong as they actually look. So it's, you know, and if they're not putting the right nutrients into the soil, then basically that you're not going to be getting it in your food, because if the plant hasn't got it, you've not got it, and the animal that's eating it hasn't got it at the end of the day. So it's just becomes this vicious cycle for ourselves. So our foods have, you know, they've come under like a major depletion of nutrients, and it's these nutrients that in effect build our bodies. So if it's not there, we can't get it, and we cannot rebuild our bodies. And it requires about, and I was astonished when I found this out actually, how much it had been depleted, because it requires about 5 times as much food today to receive the same nutrition received only a few decades ago. That's just scary. So quantity wise, we need to eat masses more of it just to get the same nutrient level as we did previously. back in the 1930s and 40s, before it became, the conventional farming really took hold. And if most people are living a really stressful life, and what most people don't realise is how much impact stress actually has on the body. And I will go on and on and on about stress and water and all those things and nutrients going in, because for me they're absolutely key, and they should be key for you too. And I think one of the guys on here was saying that he felt much better since he'd not been working. And let me find out who it was. Let me just go back. I feel good having lots of free time. That was Kaza. And yeah, it's because we're not under the same pressure. The corporations and work tends to put you under a pressure continuously, and they put more and more and more pressure on you. And we live busier and busier lives, so that all we're doing is trying to chase our own tails continuously. So we're having to get up far earlier than we should do. We're then running around to get children ready. We don't feed ourselves properly at that point. We eat on the run. It's all stress on the way to school, and then we're getting ourselves to work, and then we're at work, and it's constant pressure, and the emails are just constantly coming down at you, or you're now being performance managed. And in effect, that just adds continuously, and that much stress has a massive impact on the body. It is massively detrimental, and that's why you feel so much better, Kaz, not having to work. We all do, when we're not under all of that system. So, is it Vose or Voke? So, all goodness is removed from the food to extend the shelf life. Well, basically, if you're eating packaged food, it's full of additives, it's full of preservatives, so that in effect it keeps it looking nice. Now, I'll just talk about dog food. They actually dye it a caramel colour, because otherwise it'd be green. If you're feeding your dog canned dog food or processed dog food, just consider the fact that they stick it full of additives and preservatives, so that it actually looks like meaty chunks. And, my dog loves it if I feed it her. I'm almost fighting her off a pedigree chum tin, if a friend kind of brings her round as a treat. But, our foods are exactly the same. Our processed packaged foods are full of preservatives and additives, so that they remain on the shelf for as long as possible. They even wax fruits, so that they coat, lettuces and all sorts of things in kind of this plastic waxy stuff. So in effect, it continues looking good on the shelf for as long as possible. So it's actually degrading on the inside, some of those products, which is a bit scary. But all your packaged foods, they're devoid of nutrients. They put calories, to come back to the interview, they put calories on the outside. It has 300 calories in it. You shouldn't be focused on the calories at all. I'd be really focused on actually what are the nutrients within that meal. Because, once you've started cooking it and processing it, they start to degrade significantly. And if your body is under stress, and it's under more and more stress nowadays, we have continual stress from the television, from all the news that's coming down, all the media, so as well as our daily lives, it depletes the body continuously. And it depletes the body of its building blocks. And these are the things that lead to your body breaking down faster over time. And it's kind of like I'll come back to the boiling the frogs slowly, because it's not a big hit. We just don't notice it in the same way. We just start to feel more and more tired, and more. It starts to become more difficult to actually function properly over time. So when people actually say stress is a killer, they're absolutely right. But it's a slow burn, effectively, and it ages you considerably. That's the other thing stress does. And this is why having really good quality food and possibly taking supplements and vitamins actually to boost your nutrient levels, is absolutely right. Because if you're aging with the stress because it's eating up your nutrients, you really want to be looking at what you need to be putting back in all the time. Oh, sorry. Jim and Lorraine, who have asked, who's talking on the radio? It's Debbie Walker. I never introduced myself today, did I? So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. And come on, get in the chat box and start chatting away and asking questions. if you can. So that'd be good. Thanks, John. I'm glad you're laughing with me. Hopefully that's not laughing at me. I imagine half of you are laughing at me. So basically, the whole kind of slow burn just damages you because of the free radicals that start happening, because your body's more acidic. You basically get more free radicals happening, and basically this is where you need good quality foods. You need your antioxidants, because they go around like a mop and mop all your free radicals up and prevent the damage being so detrimental to you over time. So, when you look at people who are significantly stressed, you can actually tell, because their skin will be impacting. It will be impacting on the skin. And what's happening on the outside is literally a reflection of what's happening on the inside in your cellular makeup. And I meet clients who start to say to me their teeth are starting to fall apart. And I start to get quite worried about that, because, of course, if your teeth are falling apart, what's happening with the rest of your bones? And that will happen if they've been under stress for a significantly long time, or they've been on a lot of sugar for a long time as well. And good afternoon, Michael. How are you all? Hopefully you're all well. And Jim and Lorena said, "Hey Deb, sweetie." That's very kind of you. I do like all these smiley faces, which I'll be honest, I haven't worked out how to sort out yet and how to do myself. I'm not that au fait with all these smiley faces. Maybe someone can give me a lesson in them. Okay, so Michael said, would you say that taking vitamins and supplements are a must for a healthy diet? I think that if you're not growing your own food and you're not in control of what's going into your own soils, then in effect, yes, if you are under a lot of stress and you are not eating a high nutrient diet and you can't, you really don't know what's in those foods, then in effect, yes, I would always supplement. I would always supplement with a basic, good quality multivitamin. And the thing is that if you're getting the right nutrients, you'll know, because you will start to eat less and you will start to be drawn less to food. And this is the thing about food. It starts to inform you about how much it needs. So if I was talking to someone earlier this week, and we were talking about foraging quite quickly, and the thing is that when I take people foraging and when I bring the greens back, they will often say, "Is that all we're having?" I'll say, "Yeah, you don't need any more than that." And they will not be able to even work their way through a handful of greens that we've collected, and that's because they're so high in nutrients. So, wild food has far higher nutrients because it's had to grow in the wild, and it's not been cultivated in the same way. So I would always say, as a minimum, have a good quality supplement. And if you go onto my website and if you sign up in the newsletter box, I think it's the second email that goes out actually has a article, it's kind of a report that goes out, which is on synthetic versus whole food supplements. And you can unsubscribe at any stage, you're not tied into anything, but it gives you an understanding of why you want to basically spend more money, because if you spend more you end up taking less of them, so it actually becomes more cost effective, and they actually work on your body as well. Because synthetic it's pointless taking them. They'll do some, they'll make some change, but fundamentally, your body treats most of it as a foreign substance, and the synthetic ones are cheap. So you'll know a synthetic one. You buy them in the supermarket; they'll cost you $2.99 in versus ones that I sell, which are you're going to spend probably about £10 on. But the thing is the difference in what they do to your body is significant. So it's always worth actually paying more for your supplements, because you get it back. And Jim and Lorraine are saying how I actually do the smiley. Thank you very much. Probably just need to work my way around all this software a bit more, don't I? But as soon as I get more au fait with it, it's a bit like driving my car at the moment. I'm kind of kangarooing it all down the road. And, I just remember my dad having his head in his hands whilst I was doing that, and they were all laughing. So I'm still at that stage with it all, which is why the hard drive disappeared at halfway through the interview and all this business. So you'll have to bear with me, guys, at the moment. So Michael is saying to me, are you in favour of eating raw food as opposed to cooked food? I personally eat a high raw food diet because of the enzyme levels, and I feel that it suits my body better. I don't always advocate a raw food diet because the people that I work with are often at different stages, and raw food's very, very cleansing. So it might not be suitable for you to do straight away because it can impact so much on your organ system. Because if you put raw foods in and very natural foods in very quickly, and you've been having very much a normal standard diet, then in effect all what you're putting into the cells got to come out. And in effect, you can overload yourself. And this is where sometimes people who go straight onto raw food diets feel far, far worse. So it's all about managing it, really. And I like it because it really does. I feel great on it, in all honesty. And lots of my clients who come feel great on it. And I believe that your body knows what's best for it, and so you'll be drawn to it. Particularly in this country, you might be more drawn to raw foods during summer. So at the moment, you probably don't really want hot food if you're in the UK, and then in winter you'll probably want heavier and denser food. And if you're into raw foods, then you might be having more gingers and more spicy food at that point, or you may just go on to steamed veg and things like this. So I believe that not just to focus on raw, but actually focus on intuitively really what your body wants. Okay, so Michael, in order to get the most nutrients out of the food you're eating, yes. For me, the less processing that goes on with food, the better, because you are not reducing its nutrient level. From the moment you cut into a carrot or you juice it, you are reducing the nutrient level because it's starting to oxidize. So, the less you do with it, the better. In all honesty, that's what I believe, and that's what the research shows. But some people, they're very tired. You've got to remember that food is very much a ritual for a lot of people. It's very much social, so it can be really important. So giving up some foods is almost like cutting your hand off. It can be extremely difficult because it's not just the food itself; it's actually the ritual. Some of the people who I meet who are smokers, they don't find it hard to give up smoking until they go to the pub or till they have a break at work. So they're in the work environment, and it's the ritual of going and having a cup of coffee, then a smoke, or going and having a beer and a smoke. It's often the side of giving up smoking that they find more difficult than just the giving up. They can give up when they're at home. They often don't find it to be a problem, but when there's other people around, it's often that pressure as well. So you've got to remember that food has this whole ritual and a lot of different meanings for people. So it's not just about what's in it that matters to a lot of people. So, but thanks, Michael. So is there any other questions coming up? Apart from how to do my smileys. So let me just come back to the stress picture, because if you are highly stressed, and we are placed under a massive amount of stress in this environment, then don't forget that you will use up a massive amount of nutrients in the stress response itself. So when your body goes into a stress situation, and this can be from something as simple as drinking a cup of coffee, then in effect your whole body goes into an adrenaline response, and this starts to then actually stop the body from rebuilding itself. It can only go into a defense mode, or it can go into rebuild mode. It can't be in both at the same time. So this is why your nutrients just get eaten up when you're stressed, and this is where people's bodies start to kind of degrade over time when they are significantly under stress, and they'll keep it going because the cortisol gives you endurance that's also triggered. So okay, you keep on going and going and going, and then all of a sudden, if somebody has a holiday, this is where all of a sudden people go, I go on holiday and every single year I get ill, and that's because the adrenaline response is reduced and the body's gone, oh right, I've got time to be ill because your immunity is then lower, and so in effect people end up being ill. Okay, and people often say they tend to manage their stress and that they have a high tolerance for it, and that they're great in dealing with it, but it's actually shortening their lifespan because the impact on the nutrients and how quickly they're used is so significant. and then add the caffeine from the teas and coffees and other drinks like Red Bull that people are continually putting into their body, which also creates a stress response. And effectively, you're placing your body in a constant deficit. Not that, and that's not just with your nutrients, but also water. So your body will water ration at the same time. And I will go on and on and on. If you've heard me before, you think all I do is talk about water all the time. And it's because once, your body will ration the water. And if your body's in a deficit with that, and then it's in a deficit with nutrients, it's kind of a slippery slope. And your RDAs on your supplements, they are not high enough half the time to resolve them. They are minimal. They're minimal to survive. So they're a nice boost to have, and this is why I say you need to put them in all the time, particularly if you're eating conventional farmed food, and then put them in so that effectively, you are not falling below and not creating a severe deficit for yourself. But the RDAs that, the doctor will say, you can't go above that RDA on the back of the packet. You can often, but be careful with your multivits, in particular if they've got iron in them and got some of the minerals in them, because you need to make sure you're not actually imbalancing yourself with your minerals. But the majority of them you can take up higher than the RDA. Okay, but do your research on that. Because the RDAs are not meant to keep you healthy. They're just meant to keep you to a point where all you do is survive, in all honesty. So that's supplements. Has anyone got any more questions about supplements this week? Anything going on in the chat box? Your chat box is really quiet today. Is there actually anybody there apart from Jim and Lorraine and Michael? And the Ram. Hello, Ram. It has gone incredibly quiet. So I'm going to carry on. Okay, so this is all kind of an extension of what I was talking about last week, because for me, optimal performance is about putting the right foods in and having the right thinking. So it matters what you eat, drink and think all the time, because your body is constantly regenerating itself, and basically the body that you've got now will have regenerated itself about 70% by next year. So 12 months time, in effect, you will have a 70% different body, and therefore you can fundamentally change it. Oh, there are more people there. Hello, Christina and Robin Dragon. Excellent. How do you have space for a dragon? So I'm also going to talk about additives, because there's masses of additives in everything. And someone earlier on the chat box was talking about kind of processed foods. And in effect, what you will find in processed foods is that they are packed with additives. And say no to additives if you can. And this is where you fundamentally need to be pushing aside processed foods. If you want optimal health, then make your own food, and ideally grow your own. But the less processed your food is, the less it will have these in it. And over again, it is the foods that contain additives that are seen to be the most detrimental to health continuously. So, John, basically, can you tell me what are the best supplements, please? Well, the thing is that I have different types of supplements for different people at different stages of life, in different stages of health. And this is what you'll find with practitioners. So the stuff you just go and buy off the shelf isn't, well, we use practitioner grade. So in effect, my advice to you is actually do some research around your age, your health issues, and then get onto the internet or get a good quality nutrition book, and that will tell you the levels of nutrients that you need at that point, and then also the types of supplements. So it will recommend supplements as well for you. And if you went onto my website, you'll actually see that I basically stock only about 4 or 5 brands overall, and those are the brands that I totally trust, and they're practitioner grade as well. But a good quality supplement will cost you more than a supermarket one. That's the only thing. So it's not cheap. And Jim and Lorraine, I love growing my own food. It is absolutely a stressless life. It's very satisfying. You're absolutely right. And there's nothing I like more than seeing all the bits and pieces coming up in my garden and when I had my allotment. And I remember the first year that I had an allotment, I was sat down pulling the carrots out and we were eating them like children. It was such a lovely experience. And I started eating this carrot and I just thought, oh my God, it tastes carroty. And it was something that I'd almost missed. You know, the carrots in the supermarket just never taste like that at all. So Christina's saying I use Floradex, and lots of people use Floradex. Yeah, it's a quality supplement to use. So, and John says thanks. You're very welcome. Okay, so let's see. Who else? What else? So what are my thoughts on colloidal silver? I like colloidal silver. No, we always have it in the bathroom cabinet, and I have it for bacterial infections. So I have a few guides for my clients, and I have it as part of the protocol for them. So a few drops in water, or I managed to almost cut the end of my thumb off just recently, and I wrapped it in silver once the hospital had stitched it, mind you. So yeah, I like colloidal silver, and stock up on it. I'm not sure how long we'll be able to continue getting it for, but there seems to be some places still selling it, and I still have it, and it's part of my practice. So I love it. What is everybody using it for? So Michael, if you got any ideas, that'd be great to put it on the chat box about what you're using it for. But obviously for wounds, and you can take it internally, just use it at the right time, because you don't want to just be taking something continuously, because then your body just gets used to it. And it's like with a supplement, actually. With anything, you need to rotate through so your body doesn't create a tolerance for it. And because you wouldn't get everything all year round. Our cycles of life are seasonal, so just remember everything needs to be cycled through. And but yeah, definitely like a colloidal silver. So let's see what else. Yeah, Jim and Lorraine, supermarket food is tasteless. You're absolutely right. And even their organic food is tasteless, which to me shows what they're doing to organics, unfortunately. And you can see it coming off conventional farms. I've actually gone over to a box scheme, and that actually tastes significantly different. And you can tell that they've picked it that week because it's still got the taste to it. So I would suggest getting onto a good quality organic box scheme, definitely. And Christina, agree, I grow here too, tasty and full of goodness. Yeah, and it's great for you growing. You get yourself outside. We spend our lives sitting and in front of computers nowadays, and actually it slows our whole lymph system down, when really we should be up and moving around and out in the sun far, far more than we are. And the exercise is good for us. It's nice, gentle exercise, so it doesn't actually shock the body. So Michael says he uses colloidal silver for a sore throat. Yeah, I actually I have a friend who swears by bee pollen as well, and I suggested that to him years ago. He still takes it. I saw him on Twitter just recently saying he was getting a sore throat, so he's going to take bee pollen, and I started laughing. I didn't realise he was still doing it. So but yeah, sore throats, any sort of bacterial infection would be useful. If you've got a sore throat, though, think about doing other things like because if it's in your glands, remember that you need to keep everything moving through your system and look at why you might have got a sore throat and what's trying to come out. So in effect, don't forget things like skin brushing and doing the naturopathic techniques. The old-fashioned techniques work at cleansing the body. So we often turn to supplements and remedies to try and resolve things like sore throats and flus and things, when actually cleansing is far, far better. So things like water enemas, things like the skin brushing and packing, very, very useful. And in probably not this week, but possibly next week, I'm going to cover off one of the key books that I use in my practice and is part of the training that I originally had, so that you can start learning yourselves, guys, as well, about where I get my information from. So what else has been said? It helps with that. Yep, thanks, Debbie. Colloidal silver, so orbital. Hello, orbital. Colloidal silver can be sprayed on female cannabis plants to make it produce male flowers to produce feminized seeds. Oh, that's really fascinating. How interesting is that? Does it happen with any other plant, orbital. Does anybody else know that? But is anybody using it for pesticides then, like a pesticide on their plants? So I'm asking you questions now. So athlete's foot and any natural remedy, thanks. Okay, T3 Mark, thank you very much. Athlete's foot is effectively fungal infection that you've got. Or you might not have it, but somebody has, that you're asking about. And the thing is, that is a deeper issue than just on the foot itself. So you need to start looking at what's happening in the gut area and whether, what the health of the gut is like. Because normally when I see a fungal infection, I normally see it elsewhere as well. So I'll see it on the tongue, I'll see it in the fingers maybe, or on the skin. But go back to the gut and start working on the gut area. Things like probiotics, things like your enemas, cleansing the gut area out and rebuilding the bacteria in there. And the same thing for your sore throats as well. We as naturopaths believe that 80% of health is actually created in the gut area. And lots of my clients at first are a bit confused when I'm looking at, they come and bring kind of fungal infections to me, and then I'll start to work on a different part of their body. But I work educationally, so once I've explained the elimination cycle, they're quite clear about it. But this is where you need to see it as wider than just your foot. So go back to the gut, look at what's happening in your gut area and basically work on that first of all. And you'll find that over time, your athlete's foot will start to actually reduce itself. So start with probiotics and gently, by the way, and change things bit by bit by bit. And you should see that start to go over time. So Orbital says he's not sure. Okay. Thank you very much for replying anyway. Oh, patchouli oil is great for fungus. You know what? It just reminds me of the Sisters of Mercy years ago, Christina. It really does. Hey now. And T3 Mark, stop eating wheat. And the gluten has a massive effect on the gut area. I started talking about it last week. Gluten syndrome causes things like brain and nerve damage, autoimmune disease, mental illness, skin diseases, gastrointestinal disorders, because it goes into the gut and then it starts flattening all of the ciliated kind of the villi, basically. So it really stops your absorption, and it's a complete nightmare. And there's loads of research now which is showing how it impacts on the mental, on the mental state. Wheat in particular, it's been linked in research to things like schizophrenia and other mental illnesses. And, you got your opiates in it as well. So effectively, if you're having cereal for breakfast, if you're having a sandwich for lunch, and if you're having pasta for dinner, you're self-medicating with opiates all the way through the day. And I can understand why some people do that, in all honesty. If you're working in some corporate environments. But actually, wheat is a complete nightmare because of the gluten in it. You're far better cutting out that grain if you want to have clarity of mind for the long term. Very definitely. Okay, so Christina said, really? To which bit? Was that to the Sisters of Mercy? Yeah. Am I going to own up to the fact I was a goth? I think I just have done. Okay. That was years ago. And I think everybody around me wore patchouli oil. So, Michael, there have been studies done on the questionable toxicity of fluoride. Should we then avoid it? Yes. Absolutely. Cut it out of your toothpaste, and if you can, get it out of your water. It's an absolutely appalling substance for the body. It dulls the brain, and The Fluoride Deception is one of the best books to read about fluoride, and it will open your eyes. They started, I think it was IG Farben that basically developed it with the concentration camps. It was used so that they could actually dull down the senses enough so they can control mass numbers. That should tell you everything. Get out of your toothpaste. You don't need it. And the fluoridosis that they say is just on the enamel. Actually, it has to go throughout the whole bones. What is happening on your teeth is happening to your bones, guys. And it's a very good picture. Your mouth is a really good picture of health. So, yeah, cut your fluoride out of your toothpaste. I'll cover fluoride in another session. Okay. for sure use natural toothpaste, or do what I do. I use Himalayan sea salt, so I'll put that on my toothbrush, and I use a bit of neem oil on my oh gosh, what's the wire called? On the floss wire. So basically I'll use a little bit of neem oil just to actually clear the bacteria down, because you don't want bacteria coming out of your teeth and everything, all the placky bits. You want to get rid of them, so you don't want them going into your system, because then your body's just got to deal with it. So in effect, those are the two key things. I'll use a bit of colloidal silver occasionally. I forgot all about that. So Michael, another thing to use with it, if I seem to have an infection in one of my teeth or something like that, or the gums are bleeding for some reason. And what else do I use? I use something else. I think it's bicarbonate of soda I use is the other thing. And when I'm just noticing that the herbal teas that I'm drinking are effectively staining my teeth, so that's what I tend to use. So what other people are using? Yeah. So Christine, tea bags, so many foodstuffs contain fluoride. Yep, if you're having normal tea places, if you're having processed foods, they all just contain all the water. They don't bother, most companies will not bother to actually filter their water. So you will be having fluoride in a number of different ways. And this is where, when they say, oh, you only need so many micrograms of it, and that there's only so many micrograms in the water, what they're forgetting is that if you're eating, if you're bathing or showering in it, and you're drinking it all day, then in effect you're having way over the accepted levels, even their accepted levels. And to be honest, for myself, they're in their accepted levels. It's just not acceptable to put something like that in your body. So Michael says, I use baking soda. Yeah, I can never remember the actual, the name of it. So yeah, that's actually what I use as well. And the thing is, it's hydrophilic, so effectively it draws the water to it. So in effect, if you leave it in the bathroom, it just becomes like a hardened chunk after a while. So MMS, great for oral cleansing too. I'll be honest, I very rarely use MMS, only with people who've got Lyme's and have not, the protocol hasn't actually worked all the way through, and then effectively I will put MMS in at the end because it's so highly cleansing. So I very rarely use MMS, but I do know it's a lot of TNS people are using it, and I've got a couple of friends locally who are using it. So do I think that's okay? I've like I say, I only really use it at the end of my protocols if I've not managed to actually clear the issue up. But that's very rare. That I use MMS. I think I've only used it once in my practice in the last few years. Okay, so let me see what else. MMS for toothpaste here, interesting. And mouthwash. So you see people are using it in different ways, so maybe you just want to kind of throw some ideas around in the chat box around that. So can't use mouthwash with alcohol, use sage tea. Sage tea is fabulous, you're absolutely right, Nick. And I've got 2 sage bushes outside my house. It's so nice. They're busy flowering at the moment, they are. And sage is a fabulous herb to have. And surround yourselves with herbs, guys. Do start growing these things. So you've got a medicine cabinet growing right outside your door, and you can put them in salads. Then there's nothing better than having like a salad with basil and thyme and basically you've got chives in there, and then you've got rosemary in there. Powerful herb. And make oils with them. So put them in oils and things, so that you're having these every single week. You want to rotate through so that your body doesn't constantly get used to it. But surround yourself with all your herbs, because they're fabulous for your body. But you're best off avoiding alcohol mouthwashes. They're just damaging for the actual mouth. And I just totally don't believe in them. You shouldn't be putting alcohol into your mouth. It really doesn't need it. So Christina says, it's great to link up with you all. How lovely is that? She's absolutely right. It's nice to have people who are, who are all thinking the same and all want to learn in the same way. And this is how we become really strong in our thinking, because we can push things forward and share the information. So get on this chat box and share your information, because that's how we all grow and develop our knowledge. And then we collectively have the knowledge. It's not just one or two of us that have it, because that's my aim. My aim is that I always, when I see my clients, they're always a bit kind of nonplussed because, they go and see the doctor and the doctor will just go, okay, you need to take this, this and this. And there's no explanation about why. Whereas I will sit there, and really understand the client, and then I will explain what they need to do and what's going on in their health. And my aim is to make them into a mini naturopath. And my aim with you guys is to kind of give you as much knowledge as I've got. And then, if you share yours with me, that would be even better. Because, there's 27 people on this chat box. 27 minds are better than one, honestly. So my face is good for your health. That's Shaziz. Are you ready to take over from me soon, Shaziz? I hope so. These Tesla coils, he'll be getting ready soon. Okay, so commercial mouthwash and gum disease is all a big con. Yeah, basically if you've got gum disease, start looking at what you're eating, because fundamentally what you eat matters. The acidity in your mouth is created from what you eat and how you live your lifestyle. Because what goes in is created, all of the juices are created from what you eat, and therefore it just makes your mouth more acidic. And this is then more detrimental. This is where you'll see higher plaque levels, you see where you receding gums and things like this. If you've not got the right nutrients in there, of course your gums are going to recede, of course your bones, your teeth aren't going to actually be actually in a good or in a good way. Because they can't, everything's constantly regrowing. But they can't regrow if you're not giving it the nutrients, if you're not giving it the right foods at the right times. So Shaziz is ready to take over the world with his Tesla coils. I've got no doubt about it. My next stage is just to work out these emoticons, as I've just seen the code, and get smiley faces happening for everybody. So Kaza says basically just brush with water and clean properly. Your gum disease will go and your teeth will be clearer and whiter. And you don't need a lot to actually clean your teeth properly. And we've seen that. You don't need all these fancy toothpastes, in all honesty. Just a good diet. Feed yourself. Always think about what you're feeding yourself from the inside, because it comes out. Everyone's putting emoticons on. That's my next goal for today, to find out how to do them. So Shaziz, what have you got coming up? Why don't you put that in the chat box so that we can all get ready for you? Anything particular? What tunes have you got? So has anybody got any more questions for today? Come on guys, in this chat box. No? So I'm going to come back to additives, because they are detrimental to your health. And we're talking about teeth. The more acidic the food that goes in, the more acidic that your saliva is going to be. It's going to be more of a problem. It's going to be more detrimental to your health. Additives such as monosodium glutamate, they're just, it's a complete nightmare to the body. The glutamic acid effectively causes nerve damage. It causes calcium-related nerve damage. You calcify in your brain. And that's just from one additive. Can you imagine? You've got aspartame that's put in loads and loads of foods. Now, in fact, I was talking to someone yesterday and they felt they led a very healthy diet, started breaking it down, and it was just sugar continuously in a variety of forms. So your cereal turns to sugar if you're having really processed cereal. Your sugar, all your different sweeteners that are in foods are also a complete nightmare. And then fruit juices are just high sugar. If you're drinking concentrated fruit juice, it's just high sugar. Shaziz has got madness, of course. Is that madness actually in the band, or is that madness actually as in madness and your mental state? Should I even ask? So Orbital, what is the problem with alcohol? I was gargling with vodka. We actually gargling with it, Orbital, in reality. I thought alcohol would be good at killing germs. It dissolves plant resins. Interesting. I would avoid alcohol, in all honesty. In the way I work, which is naturopathic, we just wouldn't have alcohol near the body, because one, it's not needed. You can do it in far more gentler ways. Your body actually needs to be treated quite gently, and alcohol just isn't that gentle. So Vin, let me see. Everyone, Rin's telling me how to do the chat boxes. And Debbie, there was a very strange advert on TV a couple of years ago asking folks to go to the doctor if they had a fungal infection in their toenails. Well, you've got to remember that actually, you know, they're in the States in particular, and I think over half of their advertising is actually now pharmaceuticals. So it's getting more and more. Of course, the pharmaceutical industry are just focused on actually getting you into their funnel. That was part of the conversation I was having with Gregory Anne. That in effect, it's not about health, it's not about well-being, it's about getting you into a disease state so that they can constantly funnel you through. All that happens with those medications is they treat from the outside, and this is where if you suppress, and in our perspective, and this is a naturopathic perspective, if you suppress from the outside, all that happens is it goes in and it finds something else to do. And if you look at Herring's rule of law, and this is what partly I map, illness goes inwards and upwards. So you will see illness go deeper and deeper and deeper if you suppress it over time. So my suggestion is you really don't suppress it. So, come on, Debs, I want to see a smiley face. I'm going to have to do it afterwards. I'm trying. It's a bit like driving my car at the moment, Vin. I'm still in the hole trying to get it out of first gear without kangarooing the whole thing. So, and Vin says that when Mike was talking about aliens would invade our bodies. Have you been reading too much David Wilcox and his disclosure stuff, Michael? So, well, there's no sales pitch. I thought it was very strange. Anyway, anyone else remember it? I actually don't, cause I don't run the TV, to be honest, Ben. I bowed out of it all on purpose because I just found that it altered my behaviour. And I listened to somebody it's a few years ago now, and he just talked about the fact that he was a producer, and it wasn't the programme that really mattered. It was all the adverts, and they were purely about programming, and this is what he was clear about. In his job, it was about programming people so that they were ready for the adverts. To just bear that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to put some music on now, and if that's it, if nobody's got any more questions for me for this week, I'll put some music on and then hand it over to Shizzies and his Tesla coil.